What if you knew how to find the right person? What if instead of having something really complicated and elaborate, you just knew? But today, I'm going to have a reaction to Matthew Hussey as he talks about this. But I'm going to give you my observation as to why I think it's difficult for folks when they're looking for that one ideal person, even when they're trying really hard and being sincere. So let's start off with what Matthew says, then I'm going to give you some comment to it.
So first, let's talk about how we wind up thinking someone is right for us. Picture a scenario. You meet someone who appears to be exactly the kind of person you see yourself with. They look like your type, face, hair color, body shape, ethnicity. It all lines up with a picture you've had in your mind. They're charismatic and charming in the ways that you find attractive. They carry themselves how you hoped they would, have the kind of sense of humor that you love, and plenty of what I call in my programs unique pairings. They're goofy and sexy, ambitious and able to have a good time and be playful, confident and humble. Whatever the exact cocktail of this person's personality, it's pretty close to the exact blend of things that you look for in a person. The phrase right on paper is something we use for someone that we see on an app or who superficially has a certain job, age, and profile.
So let me start with this part. Everything he says makes perfect sense. One of the hard things for me sometimes is that sounds kind of complicated, and I had to listen to it a couple of times, because if I have to remember all of that, see, that's going to cause confusion. I'm not saying it's not good. I'm not saying it's not valid, everything he's saying. It's just when I talk to someone about love in a relationship, one of the things they're looking for is, I don't want it more complicated. I don't want it more things I have to remember. What's the cheat or the short or the thing I can take versus having to remember all this stuff. Because I know when I was in school, one of the things I found was when teachers made it really complicated, it was just a lot more for me to remember. So let's keep going and see, how he kind of winds this up or brings this to the point.
But there's also such a thing as right in my heart, which is when, based on the moments we've had with someone, our heart is fully convinced that they are right for us. So we hold on tight, hoping to God that our dreams with this person do not get crushed by the other shoe dropping. Then it happens. They turn around and they tell you that they've decided they do not want to continue dating you or being in a relationship with you. It hurts, and it hurts badly. Not the kind of hurt that we feel when we seriously get betrayed by someone who we find out has been cheating on us the whole time or has love bombed us into falling for them only to disappear without a trace. These things create unresolved emotional wounds for sure. But the kind of hurt that we feel when someone we've deemed right for us rejects us is in some ways deeper, especially when we've decided that they are precisely the kind of person that we would want to be with. But in reality, none of the things that I have mentioned already make someone right for you. They may contribute to someone being right for you, but they are all missing one crucial ingredient that makes someone the right person for you specifically.
So before he goes into what he thinks that one thing is, again, more about how elaborate this is, and I'm going to see if I can give you a simpler version. What he's alluding to has to do with familiarity. And so if I've dated a certain type man or married certain types or grew up in a family where my mom or my dad were a certain way, those things are familiar. I may not like them. Someone may be really loud, and I had a lot of that growing up, and I may not like it, but because it's familiar, I know how to deal with it. And the beauty of familiar is familiar makes us feel safe. We feel like I can relate to this. I know how to handle it when it gets out of control. The downside, what he's pointing out, is familiar may not be good for us. So there may be a certain type man that's really intense. He's really charismatic. And because that part's familiar, we overlook the character parts. He may lie. He may be unfaithful. He may not follow through with what he says he's going to do. So if it's familiar, we all have this tendency to be familiar. Knowing that means just because something is familiar, or your type, doesn't mean he's the best fit for you. Let's see what he says for his one thing, then I'll give you mine, and then you can decide.
To find someone who is the kind of person who gets our stuff. or doesn't think that our stuff is reason to break up with us, and even perhaps through their special way of loving us, calms down our stuff in a way no one has before. It's funny how we think.
So I'm going to summarize with him is when he says someone that gets our stuff, I'm going to call it something different, someone that's a good fit for us or someone that's aligned with us. Ideally, what we're wanting is someone that whatever qualities you have that you like doing, that your partner enjoys those qualities without having to try to do it. If you're a woman and you like a man that's really ambitious and he's building his career very aggressively, there's going to be some weekends where he might have to work. And what he's wanting is a wife that says, honey, go do what you got to do. Don't work every weekend, but if there's times you have to stay late, if there's times you have to do that, I'm all for you. So he's wanting a cheerleader because that's what he does well, that's how he shows off, that's how he provides. What men have a fear of is that there's these qualities you like, and then once he falls in love, is that you're going to want to change. You're going to want to help him. You're going, like the example I just gave, he's going to be doing this and you're going to say, hey, no, work is work. And when you come home, you leave work behind. Well, that type man can't. If there's 20 people, that depend on him to make these decisions, he can't just go home and forget it. Conversely, if you're someone and you're prone toward anxiety at times, or perhaps, you get impatient at times, those qualities, it's not that he loves those qualities necessarily, but that they don't bother him. As opposed to you trying to convince him why it's not that big a deal, or you constantly working on, I should never have this trait, you're always going to have some of that. One of the main things as far as who's the right fit for you is how much can you be yourself when you're around them? How do you feel when you're around them consistently? Do you find yourself feeling anxious? Do you find yourself feeling invisible? Or do you find that the more you of yourself, the more they love you? As one client of mine said recently, she said, Bob, this is the first time I've ever felt like I could be myself in a relationship. That's what we're after. And if you find you can't be yourself, instead of just getting rid of the person, let's slow down and let's evaluate why that is. Perhaps you're holding back. Perhaps the person that you're talking about is not a good fit. And the worst part is, and I know this is tough, is if they have two, great qualities you really love, but they really don't like this other part of you, or you really can't stand, or it really bothers you this part. Compromising is not pretending that you don't like what you like, or that you like what you don't like. That's just lying. Compromising is where you don't have to get your way in everything. So most adults, most women I talk with, they can compromise. They do it at work, they do it with friends, but they confuse that, because I like him a lot, I'm going to make it a point to not be selfish, and I'm going to pretend it doesn't bother me that this guy works a lot. I'm going to pretend it doesn't bother me that he's not romantic. Even though she always wanted someone that was really romantic, she's going to lie to herself to make it work. And that's not a good fit for you. And ironically, it's not a good fit for him either if you're trying to pretend to be someone you're not just to make it work. So let's focus on that, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.